Hey, Leonard.
How are you, Graham?
Keeping well, and you?
Excellent. Very excited about tonight's workshop. Sort of a performance, but no, it's very exciting to see so many folks um, tuning in to this first workshop in this
Absolutely.
series.
Yeah, I'm excited because I didn't actually know much about Crankies before. I actually it was the Winnipeg Cranky Festival last year was the first time I had ever heard of a Cranky, and I thought, what's a Cranky? And of course, I did a little bit of research, and I'm sure everybody here knows, but it was a complete eye opener for me. So this is
Well, one
yeah,
of the things that I sure love about it is just how it brings music and visual art and storytelling, all these aspects together. Um, and we're just it was inspiring to start so inspiring that we started a festival up in Winnipeg and are, are have introduced the community to this, and people are taking it on in every crazy way possible. So it's amazing.
and what I did, I guess maybe it was last week, was I actually recorded a musician and a cranky operator at the same time. And it's neat how people may not know that musicians can't actually perform at the same time um, online because there's too much of a delay getting the signal from one place to another. You can't actually play from one place to another. However, the half second or second delay is just fine for a cranky because if you're out by a
That's
half second, it's not too bad.
that's right.
So that was to me that was an eye opener. That was one of the most exciting things I've done in the last little bit. So anyway, I've talked enough. I think maybe Leonard,
Are
maybe
we ready to start the show?
I'm super excited.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Graham. Howdy, folks. Once again, my name is Leonard Fadolic, and I'm the executive producer. I mean, sorry, pardon me, executive director of Home Route Chemin Chez Nous. And we would like to acknowledge that Home Route Chemin Chez Nous in Winnipeg, Manitoba, which is where we're based, operates on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Innu, and Dakota peoples, and is also the homeland of the Métis Nation. Um, we would also like to just take a quick second here to thank our funders and sponsors, which include the Government of Canada, Department of Canadian Heritage, the Manitoba Arts Council, the Canada Council for the Arts, the Province of Manitoba, Factor, and SOCAN for their support. We would also love to thank the entire staff and board of directors of Home Route Chemin Chez Nous. I'd just like to draw a little bit of attention to Kimberly Sinclair, who is our marketing and communications manager. And she is the person who happens to be operating the will be moderating the chat for tonight's call. But she's also been working with Home Route Chemin Chez Nous for 4 years, and she's the president of Spin Count, which is among the leading music marketing firms in Canada and certainly in the East Coast. And so we're very glad to have her a part of the team. And once again, to Graham, who I was just chatting with a second ago, he he's a modest fellow, but he's been pushing out and running all of our online programming and is our technical wizard at Home Roots Chemin Chez Nous, and we are grateful to have him as a part of the team. Um, and we're so pumped about this evening's workshop with Sue Truman, who, in my opinion, is one of the foremost purveyors of this artistic medium we know as Crankies. But before we introduce her, we would just like to take a couple seconds to tell you about the other workshops coming up. On February the 23rd, Carol Luft, who's an amazing singer-songwriter, is going to be doing a workshop singing with the 5-string banjo. So if you're a banjo player or not, she's going to be given some tips on to how to make creative accompaniment with the banjo. And then on the 2nd of March, we have Coco Love Alcorn, who's also a very dynamic and creative singer-songwriter and music arranger. And so please check out all of that on our website. And also, of course, March 5th to 7th is the online version of the Winnipeg Cranky Festival, the third annual. Um, we're very excited about the lineup, and there's going to be tons of collaborations with musicians and cranky makers, and we're really pleased. And we also have a few upcoming ticketed events that we're very pumped about. On the 23rd of March, these are going to be hosted on Zoom, just like this. Canadian Manitoba singer-songwriter Sierra Noble And on the 28th, we're very, very excited to introduce the Mavens, which is a brand new trio performing for the first time ever, this time in the round, featuring Susan Crowe, Lynn Miles, and Sherry Ulrich, who are all very acclaimed and respected singer-songwriters in Canada. So please stay tuned for with all of our programming on our website, and which is homeroots.ca, and our social media at homeroots on Instagram and Facebook and all the things. So this presentation, just a little housekeeping, will be about 30 to 40 minutes long. And like I said before, Kimberly will be moderating the chat. If you have a question, just mark it in there and she'll let me know, and we'll highlight you. We have this huge team behind the scenes here that'll make it all smooth. And here we go. Without any further ado, this evening's facilitator, Sue Truman. She's been making crankies for 10 years. After seeing the crankies of Anna and Elizabeth in 2011, they were all at the first annual Winnipeg Cranky Festival. You probably mostly know of her website, crankyfactory.com, which is an amazing resource for everything related to crankies. And I'm sure she'll tell you a lot more about it. She's a fine fiddle player and a performer, and is active in the old time music scene on the West Coast. And she's also very knowledgeable about and connected with the Quebecois music scene, which I think is very cool. Sue has performed at both live versions of the Winnipeg Cranky Festival and has gained many fans in this community. We were very sad when she told us that she would not be able to attend the third annual festival, which was to take place last November. But after canceling this live event, we were delighted to find out that she would be able to take part in our online festival, which is what we were all a part of right now. And we are delighted to have you all here. So I will stop now, take a deep breath, and without further ado, everybody, Sue Truman.
Yay! Thank you, Leonard. And I'm so happy to be here. And I made so many great friends in Winnipeg. I love that. So I'm just going to get right into it because I have a lot to show you. So in this little kitchen crankies workshop, I will give you some storytelling ideas and some different ways to adapt containers from your kitchen so that you will never look at containers in quite the same way after you've had this workshop. Different materials you can use for the scroll and different ways to illustrate the scroll. So this is number one. And what I wanted to say about this is that I'm very big right now on accessorizing cranky boxes with miniatures. So you can see that I used some little pots and pans up there. Those were actually Christmas tree ornaments. And I stitched some little pot holders here, little clothespins for the cranks, and these chunky buttons for the knobs. So this is a corrugated cardboard shipping container. That's what I used. And so the first thing I wanted to mention about the physics of crankies, because you would think, well, all I'm doing is taping a scroll to two sticks and turning it, it's very low tech, but it's surprising how cranky they can be and not work. So the first thing I wanted to mention is when you load the scroll into the box, I would recommend filling up the box from side to side with the scroll, but leaving a little bit of space on each side so that the scroll doesn't rub against the sides of the box, but that will help it crank straight. The other thing is make sure the scroll is perfectly straight going that way, and then tape it on the spindle as straight as you possibly can. And if you do those things, that is going to go a long way in having your cranky not wander off to one side or wander off to the other side or go off the rails, so to speak. So these cardboard shipping boxes are just great to use. Okay, number 2. This is a little coffee filter box, of which I have many. Coffee helps the Cranky factory run smoothly. So I'll crank this and read it. This way, boy, it's weird. I'm doing things in reverse when I look at the screen. So not all who wander are lost. Some are just looking for some coffee. So again, this scroll here is made from muslin, which is like a cotton fabric. It's very inexpensive, unbleached muslin. And I use that a lot for the smaller crankies because when you're working with a really thin spindle, sometimes when you use paper, it's too springy and things won't crank smoothly. But the fabric just hugs the spindle here, and it can work really nice. It can be another resource. So cotton sheeting, cotton fabric, and in the 1840s and 1850s, when moving panoramas were the most popular, that's what folks used back then for the big moving panoramas. They used muslin or cotton or canvas, and they painted on it. So for this one, I used rubber stamps and ink to just stamp the images on, and then I used marker to color it in. But the tension on this is kind of not so good, and you see how the crank just falls there, and now the scroll is all loose, too loose. And I was going to fix it, and then I thought, this would be a good way to show you that when you're making the holes in the cardboard, don't make the hole too big, because then you won't have um, the right kind of tension for your scroll. So when I'm making a hole in a cardboard cranky, I use an awl, or you can use a Swiss Army knife or a X-Acto knife, just X marks the spot. That works too. But when you make a hole in the cardboard, you will see just little cardboard burrs that stick out. And so just leave those until, you have your scroll done, you put your scroll in there, and you see what the tension is like. And then that's the time to maybe trim things away, but don't make the hole too big right away. Another thing you could use for spindles are pencils. They would work just great. And going along with the kitchen theme, these are chopsticks, wooden chopsticks, and they make great spindles. And the paper I'm using here is actually butcher paper, and I wrote on it with this white pen, which is called a Signo Uniball. And I really like the look of the brown paper with the white lettering. So that is something I'm going to explore in the future. I want to make a cranky like that with the brown paper and the white lettering. Okay, that was number 2. Number 3, are Matchbox crankies, one of my favorite things. And at the beginning of the pandemic, when I did my first grocery order online, never done that before, I accidentally ordered a box of little boxes of these lunchbox raisins, These are Paul Newman, but lots of different, There's lots of different brands. And I thought, oh, I'm going to save those because those would make really sweet little crankies. And it even has a little frame around it. So what I wanted to tell you about making a little matchbox cranky is that you need actually 2 sizes. So this little size will be the little box part. But if you use the matches that come in this box, they're really too little. And you need these bigger matches like this for the spindles. And then that will work much better. Now, if you don't have these bigger matches, you can use these bamboo wooden skewers. Those work great for these little tiny crankies. And for today, I'll be talking about smaller crankies because I'm not performing out there, so I'm focusing on smaller things right now, which I totally love. So to make this, to make the holes, I have this 1/8 of an inch hole punch that just happens to be perfect for these matchbox crankies. So you just punch a hole, 4 little holes in there, and you put your bigger matchsticks in. And then for the scroll, so for this one about hygge, which is the art of cozy living during the winter, the Winnipeg people know all about that. They're professionals. About 16 to 18 inches is about all you can put in a little matchbox like this. If you put more than that, then it starts getting too much for the box. It gets too crowded in there. So I cut it out, tape it together, and then, and it took me hundreds of matchbox crankies before I discovered this, you use masking tape to tape it to the spindle. So I'm going to put this through here, and the scroll fills up the box. There's just a little bit of wiggle room at the top and bottom, but if it totally fills up the box, then it's going to be less likely to go in the wrong direction. And I'll put some masking tape on the end. And I'm going to pull it back just a little bit. And then I use something really thin like this. Come on, get up there. Like this ruler, because your fingers are too big to get in that space. So I just use the ruler and I press that piece of masking tape against the spindle and then start cranking. Now, you might ask, what's so special about masking tape? Well, I discovered that on these matches, they coat the matches with something, and that's why cellophane tape is so hard to stick to the matchsticks. Now, who would have thought that they would coat matchsticks with anything? But I found that out from my son, who's a pharmacy technician. And when I mentioned that, he said, oh, you don't know, they coat the matches, you know. So then put the tape on the other edge and then crank it back. And then take a ruler or scissors and push that tape in there, push the tape against the matchstick, and Bob's your uncle. You have a little matchbox cranky. So these are great to make for presents. And I love making them for people. Okay, number 4, a coffee cup cranky. So I saw this idea on Facebook on a YouTube video, and we're going to type it into the chat for you. But it was a anime cartoon character, One Punch Man. And I saw that and I went, oh, gee, that is so cool. So let me crank this for you and then we'll talk about it. So this is just a little scene, little ocean scene with a sun and a lighthouse. There's a fish that jumped out of the water, some birds. And then now I'm cranking the cup on the very top. Now there are more birds. And oh, a mermaid tail. And a kite. Isn't that cool? So here we go. This cup number 1, cup number 2, and cup number 3. So you could actually do this just with 2 cups. You would, it's kind of hard to see that. There we go. You can see that I cut a window here, and I'm letting some of the images kind of show through. And then there's a little space down here where you could see the fish, so that you could put cup number 3 that has nothing is cut out of it. You could simply put cup number 3 into cup number 1, and that would be great, but I'm using 3 cups. So this second cup also has a window cut out that is essentially the same size as this window. And the thing that I discovered in making these is that these paper cups have a seam where one piece of the paper overlaps with the other. And so you want to be cranking in the same direction of that seam so that when you're cranking, it doesn't bump up against the seam and make it all stop. So I had to redesign my paper cup cranky when I discovered that. And here's the trick to cranking this with 3 cups is when the second window comes up, you put your thumb right here, and that holds that second cup in place. It holds the window open so that you can see the third cup. So it's really fun to play around with. Aha, okay, a mint tin cranky. So I had so much fun with this. I can't wait to make more. I'm going to have Graham show you a quick little video, and then we'll talk about it. Okay, so as you can see, here are the miniatures again. I love using miniatures with these little crankies. And the scroll here is muslin again, but you could use paper. And I'm using rubber stamps, and I'm coloring in things with just markers. And this muslin, you can also just write on it with pen and ink, and it holds pen and ink really well. So to make this, it's fairly simple. First thing you want to do is just take the lid off, and it comes right off like that, and you can put it back on later. And then you need a wooden block here that's going to go inside of the tin. And you see how there's this little wooden groove here that was just made with a handsaw. Okay, so then this is how you punch holes in here. You put this, the edge of the mint tin just goes right in that groove. And the first thing you need is a little, just a little indentation, or just a little, so just hit it with a hammer and a nail, just to make a little point of where you want the hole. And then we get to use power tools. I love it. This is just a normal, it's not a fancy drill bit at all. It's just the same thing that you would use for wood. And so you just put that in the hole. And there we go. We've got a nice hole there. So there was something else I was going to say about this. Oh yeah. Okay. So how did we do these spindles here? These spindles are made from brass rods that you can get at the hardware store. And they're 3/32 of an inch big. And they're from a company called K and S. And we checked, these are available in both the US and Canada, but you could use, brass rods are pretty standard at the hardware store. So my husband actually is a machinist, and he did these spindle cranks for me. But the way he did it is he put the brass rod in a vise. So it's sticking up, and he just bent it over with his hand. And then he took a hammer and pounded it, and to get this really nice right angle. And then he took it out of the vise and put it in the opposite direction. Again, he bent that brass rod over with his hand, and then he pounded it with a hammer, and it makes these nice little spindles with a crank built in. And, I've been saving those mint tins forever. I almost threw them out, I don't know how many times. And so it's like, yes, so happy. I know what to do with them now. And then you can put the lid back on this if you want. Okay, next we're going to, I'm going to show you a T-box cranky. So Graham's going to play that video. Okay, everybody. So that was The Cup of Tea. And that was filmed almost a year ago, right before St. Patrick's Day. And that is an example, again, of using little miniatures along with the cranky to tell the story. And so I just love this little box. It's a berries tea box, and it's from Ireland. And it's normally, I wouldn't use a box with cardboard this thin. It's almost like cardstock, super thin and flimsy. But here again, the physics of crankies is that I knew that the scroll was going to be really short. There's only 4 little scenes to it. So I don't need a big, strong box for it. So it turned out okay, and the box is adorable. For the spindles, these are pickup sticks that I just happen to have, red wooden pickup sticks. And I use these little teacups just to kind of accessorize it, and little feet. And I kept the back of the box intact and just put a rubber band around it just to give it a little more stability. And I really like the way it turned out. So also, I wanted to tell you how I'm doing these letters. So sometimes for images, I use a Cameo silhouette machine to make the lettering. And it's a machine that I hook it up to my laptop, and it's got software. And this is like a 12-inch by 12-inch cutting mat. And it's a little bit sticky, and you can stick paper to it. Here I'm sticking Tyvek to it. And you can type the letters that you want into your computer, and you thread this into the machine, and you press cut, and there you go. That says Cameo Silhouette. And also I'm using Tyvek, Tyvek, which is a kind of plastic. So this machine, I've been using a Cameo Silhouette to cut certain images, especially letters. I've been using it for 5 years, and it's been fantastic. It's just been a real workhorse, and I've never changed the cutting tool on it. It just keeps going and going. And also there are machines called Cricuts or Cricut, C-R-I-C-U-T. That's basically the same thing. And I have friends that have those machines, and that's been working well too. So next, number 7, it is story time. So this is Ivar Haglund. And he was born in Seattle in 1903, and he was a folk singer, and he was actually friends with Woody Guthrie and Pete Seeger. And when Woody and Pete came through Seattle, they would stay at his house. And Ivar collected songs from the Northwest, and he was quite a character. And in the 1930s, he started an aquarium on the waterfront, Seattle waterfront. And he needed a place to feed the tourists who came by. And so he started this little fish and chip stand called Ivar's Acres of Clams, and the restaurants are still going today. And maybe if you've visited Seattle, you've maybe eaten there. It's a real classic place. So he was, like I said, a character. He was a lover of seagulls, especially because his neighbors on the waterfront were putting out big signs that said, "Don't feed the seagulls." So he made a sign that said, "Please feed seagulls in need," you know, just to irritate his neighbors there. And one of my favorite stories is during the holidays in the 1930s, he took a seal from his aquarium. The seal's name was Patsy, and he put a tutu on her, and he put her in a baby buggy and wheeled her down the street to one of the big department stores to see Santa. And of course, he let the Seattle Times know he was going to do this, and he let everybody know. So they were all ready for it. So you can read a lot about his escapades on the internet and see pictures of him with Patsy in the baby buggy visiting Santa. So his restaurants are still going, and part of the reason is because he always has had these takeout windows where you could just walk up off the street and get a little bag of fish and chips. And this is actually a big treat for our family right now because we're not eating in restaurants right now, but we can still go there and we can get a little bag of fish and chips, and we can sit by the water and watch the sailboats go by, and we can feed the seagulls. And we always think of Ivor when we do that. So this is a food takeout box that I have adapted. The spindles are actually, they're big barbecue bamboo skewers. And the scroll here is made out of Tyvek, and it's kind of a multimedia. It's got stamping and cutouts and that Xerox picture of Ivor, and it's got, you know, I cut the logo off of a fish and chips bag and painted it on there. So it's like a collage. And I used the Tyvek just as the base. I could have used paper, but I just happened to have a Tyvek sheet that fit this perfectly, so I used that. And Tyvek, I wanted to just mention a good friend of mine, Catherine Fahey. If you know about Crankies, you've probably seen her Crankies. She was the first one to use Tyvek for the Cranky scroll. So we have her to thank for that. And the Tyvek is available online from Uline or from Material Concepts or lots of different places. So the nice thing about it is that it is very strong. It has some body to it. It cranks easily, and you can also backlight it, and the light shines through. So it's great for shadow puppetry. And again, I love making little miniatures. This is made out of popsicle sticks, making little miniatures to go along with the Crankies. And this little sandwich board sign was just the window that was cut out of this box and just folded in half. And so if you're ever teaching cranky making with kids, this would be a great little piece to go along with a Cranky, really easy to make. Okay, one more. whipping through things here. So this is a little soap box cranky. And actually, I got this soap box at the hotel in Winnipeg when I was there a couple years ago. And it says, let's get crankin'. And so for the spindles, I'm using bamboo skewers. This is a Crabtree and Evelyn soap box. And again, the little clothespins make great cranks. I usually glue those on so that they don't slip. And the paper that I'm using this for, I'm really excited about it. It's from South Korea, and it's actually a tissue paper, but it's very strong. It has fibers woven into it, which is probably hard for you to see, but it's called Hanji, Hanji. And the wonderful thing about this is that it's strong, but it's very flexible and it hugs the spindle so that it's not too springy, and it cranks really well. It takes pen and ink or markers or paint, all of those things. It's a dream to work with. So I'm very excited to get some more of this. This was actually a present from Hae-young Ko, who's a friend of mine and a cranky artist in Seoul, South Korea. She sent this to us, and it's fantastic stuff. She uses it for small crankies, and so I am all excited about this new resource, and I'm going to use it. So I hope this has given you some ideas of making crankies, ideas for different stories and different containers you might find in your own kitchen. And I'm ready for questions.